Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. You are very welcome to day 2 of Innovate AI in Textiles. I hope you had the opportunity to join us yesterday. We had 5 very full sessions, all of them, of course, now available to stream were you unable to attend any of them. All of them incredibly insightful. And the lineup for day 2 is no less stimulating. So here we are, session 1 of day 2. And to kick off, we will be having a keynote presentation from Dr. Bjol Frenkenberger, someone I know very well, who is the CEO and co-founder of MIR Insight, a AI forecasting company. I should say, I think on about 3 or 4 occasions yesterday, the application of AI in the area of forecasting was mentioned, but no one went any deeper into it. Everyone sees it as having huge potential in compacting the challenges of price volatility and overproduction in the supply chain. And Bjol will talk to us today about that. Bjol is also joined by his COO, I do apologize, Fritz Venninger, someone you may know very well from his days at Lenzing, and also currently the organizer of the Global Fibers Congress in Dornbirn. Fritz, you're very welcome. Bjol, you're very welcome. And without any further ado, I shall hand over to you so you can share your presentation with us. Bjol.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Mark. Fritz, maybe we should briefly say who we are and why we're here. So my name is Bjol Frenkenberger, delighted to be talking to all of you. We founded MIR at the end of 2021, and I worked in my PhD at the University of Oxford on the topic of uncertainty and how that influences business decisions, what negative impact it often has, and the cost it has. And that's essentially what also fueled our interest in the topic and why we built this company, because we know what great value you can unlock by using big data, machine learning, the new technologies to transform the textile industry into a more efficient and more sustainable player in the world, so to speak. And that's also our mission.
Thanks, bro. My name is Fritz Venninger, and I have a 25 years industry experience and being the CEO of the Lenzing Group, which is the biggest man-made cellulosic fiber producers. And why I came across those guys was because, as you might know, I mean, you're continuously struggling on forecasting, and you know that stuff is very sentiment driven, not very structured. So you call up somebody and it says market is up or market is down, and this is how you get the information how you should do forecasting at the end of the day. And though I learned to know those guys who are using big data and do it in a structured way, and also using AI, machine learning, and so I was so interested to join that group. Thanks for letting me join the group.
Thank you for taking the time and joining us. Without further ado, let's go to the presentation. I'll bring it up on the screen. So there we go. The core, of course, of what we're doing relates to market activity, external market activity, and how that influences you and your products. Because we realize that many companies have very limited access and understanding of what's actually going on outside of your immediate circle of the people you know. So this is what we mean by key warning indicators. So often these key risks, the turning points, these are difficult to estimate and difficult to capture. And so just so you quickly understand what we're talking about today, so one is the problem and cost of having limited market visibility. We will talk about how new technologies such as big data and machine learning help us create essentially models of the real world, and how those models then reflect the future. We, of course, touch upon the results, also refer to a real-world example with a producer of yarns, garments, and fabrics we're currently working with. And the process towards a more data-driven company is what we will cover at the end. So to start off, of course, we know uncertainty is high. That has a real cost. I think everyone here knows this. We are in a period of high uncertainty that is just being made worse by a number of trigger events happening now. In business terms, we know volatility is high. So this is polyester, for example. So if we look at polyester prices, we know these were swinging back and forth around 50%, plus minus. And we also know on the demand side, so here we're looking at apparel imports to the US. So demand side is equally volatile with 50% swings and more in the last few years. And all of this, Fritz, I think you know this also quite well. It creates a real cost. Maybe you can say a few words for this example, how we can understand these numbers.
Yeah, I mean, just to summarize, I mean, what's the implications? And if you're, say, you don't see the tipping points, right? If it's going down or if it's going up. I mean, firstly, of course, you see after a couple months, say 2 to 3 months, a big price erosion usually when the market goes down. So you are sitting on stocks with high prices. Then, of course, the next step is stock levels still high, so you start selling off, and most of the time you are reducing the production, so this is reduced less output. So you can imagine that the fixed cost coverage is not given anymore. And then, of course, you see all the other financing costs. You have to finance the working capital. And what you're also doing, this is just a side to the customer, but if you see the side to the suppliers, you bought the raw material at the wrong time. So, and sitting maybe then on stocks. So this all in all creates, I'd say, minimum 5, 6 to 8% of turnover, which is normally lost if you are having a bad forecasting, say, for a 6 to 12 months base. And this is why I got so really excited about the system which is do it on a structured way. So really you can believe as losses 4% revenue is absolute minimum. We have examples which move up to 8%.
Yeah, and that's not pleasant for anyone in the industry. We know, of course, this is an example, but there are a number of companies that have suffered, unfortunately, these losses in the last few years.
Yeah, and I also would like to add, Bjol, if it comes to European Commission, European Union now, the textile strategy requires reporting on the resource management, on the efficiency, and we are urged to show that we are getting better and not less efficient. And so this is also something which we really pop up in the years to come, that we have to do reporting how we get better in resource management.
Yeah, that's totally agree with that, of course. And what we see the problem usually in the industry, which links directly to what you just said, is that we have this problem of overproduction. And I think you're all aware of this, but I'm just pointing it out how we see it, of course, and that leads to waste and costs. And the way it usually looks is, of course, that if you're at the back of the chain and you're producing yarns, for example, which then goes to further steps and ends up at the end consumer, you do not really have the insight into what the end consumer is doing. And there's a lack of information exchange, which creates uncertainty, which creates the overproduction and also creates waste and cost. And if we look at, for example, the polyester, where that's coming from, which is, of course, oil, here we have high volatility, which affects profit margins. So here we have, the one side is the oil side that goes into the raw material, the base material for the polyester. And again, here also you have a demand side, which influences the prices, of course. And there's, again, no information exchange between the input factor side and also the demand side. And that creates uncertainty around prices. And, what we do here is that we say, it's really unfortunate that there's billions of data available in the world, but it's so difficult for producers and for companies in the supply chain to use that data in a better way to forecast their own products, the prices they care about, and the markets they care about. And so what we do on the one hand is we put together all these billions of data for you, we clean them, we make them ready, we purchase them, we then identify what really matters in that data, what is going to be an important influence factor for you or for your business. And based on this selection process, we then forecast demand, price developments, market developments. So just so you understand how that works on a more technical basis. So once again, here you have the billions of data that we put together across macroeconomic data, financial data, global risk, climate data, etc. We identify real-world factors that, have been proven to influence the last 10 years, your demand, your prices. We then use this to create forecasts that are up to 80%, 90% more accurate than if you forecast without those factors. And of course, we output it. Also, we visualize it for you. And you can also make up your mind by examining those outputs, while we also offer now API integrations with your preferred ERP system, such as DataTex, which is very prominent also in the textile space, of course, as we all know, and who is our partner as well. I want to maybe briefly touch upon how we actually show this to you, or how you can actually look at the future. So one way is to look at an absolute value, such as here, you see the dotted points. So you simply know the next 6 months are going to be somewhere between, in this example, 86 and 95. Or you can look at the trend. And here the question is, are the next 6 months going to be more positive, more stronger? Are they going to be outside of the barrier you see here? There's a dotted barrier, the lower and the upper barrier. And the question is going to be outside of this barrier or below? So this is a different kind of question. And we offer these different ways of visualization, because we know these are different ways in which people like to evaluate the future. So to give you a concrete example of what we're doing, this is currently also what we show together with WTIN. We are looking here at US import trends, and we see firstly the quality improvement, which is the improvement you have in the forecast thanks to the market factors we identified out of the billions of data we have on our side. You see here, of course, the forecast and the historical data, the forecast in olive green, and historical data in dark blue. And here you see the different factors that were selected. For example, on number 1 and 2, we see factors directly related to consumption. So how much do people consume? Number 2, export of night dresses, of course, also directly related to textiles. Germany, a big exporter of textiles. And this gives you an idea of future imports into the US market. We see how important these are, 100%, 76% weighting, and the lag gives you an information on how much time difference there is in one data set. If there happens something in one data set, when does it affect the US imports, for example? You can see there's a number of data sets that you can select, deselect, you can make it visible. And this selection is purely automated. Yes? So we use this algorithmic logic we have developed to find the influence factors. And that can be done for any product you're interested in, your own products, or also general market data, of course, prices as well. And very important here, also the quality improvement you see. So how much better is this forecast actually in comparison to the classic way of forecasting? And how does the model learn over time? Because the machine learning model learns continuously, and it gets better and better the more data it has, until it really also outperforms a human user. So lastly, we also show that there are similar data sets available, of course, that you can purchase and access. And this is what we also present currently with WTIN, where you see an example of these external data sets that we also forecast across different apparel and categories from wool to cotton to inventories and shipments in the US itself, as well as US textile production. But again, this is an example of 8 different forecasts, and there are many, many others from fiber prices, etc., that we also offer, because we understand, of course, that prices are very important for your decision making as well as the demand side. And here you see that this is done in the same principle. We're also using these external factors to forecast the future trend of these various import data. Okay, let me go on. Fritz, is there maybe anything you would like to add?
No, I'm just fine. I mean, there's a lot said already, but what I'd like also maybe to mention is that we're working, the supply chain and the textile industry is pretty long. So it's a bit foggy around the place. The more upstream you are, like we as Lansing, as a fiber producer were, or as a polyester producer, of course, there's really not a good visibility. And so our vision is now to get more and more and more people in the textile supply chain, because then the accuracy of the forecasting is getting better and better and better. And we are very, very well on our vision, so to say. So we have them from the fiber producer side, from the textile producer side, to the printing and to the apparel making. So that forms us a very good visibility, and this is the final outcome for you all guys watching us now, that you're getting also more visibility on forecasting.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Fritz. And one thing is that, of course, our models, the data we use, is more and more specialized to the supply chain, to textiles in particular. Our models as well become fine-tuned because we are training throughout the supply chain. And as a sort of third step, we would also offer access to a premium data pool that is opt-in based. So if you want it, you can be part of it, you get access to it. If you are not interested, you do not need to take part in this system, but that is part of our offering as well. So one more point I wanted to make regarding the trend forecast, because we know that cotton price is of great interest. So we here did a trend forecast of cotton, and you see these detection probabilities. And the point is, if you have a 50% detection probability, you capture on 50% of changes, but you capture them very accurately. Maybe it's usually 90% accuracy. And that relates to the factors you see here that we made visible. We did another version of this where we worked with factors that were selected by the customer. And here you see we adapted the factors. So you see a selection of civilian labor force in the Midwest, global rapeseed oil, which is also an agricultural product and moves together with cotton, and also different data on climate, storms in Africa, floods in Africa. And this is the kind of flexibility we can offer. And then you can see how these different metrics change. Do you have more detection probability? Is the forecast going to change? Actually, what we saw is that the forecast was, in this example, the same. So you see a slight tendency towards the negative side here, so that it will slightly decrease at the end of the year. But we had some changes in the detection probability. So as you change the types of input factors you used, you had a higher detection probability of a change. And, you know, as I said, the accuracy is always very high here. So it's around 90% that you're capturing the right direction. But you don't capture all the changes because not all the changes are related to these factors. There are other things. People, you know, set up the prices, people change their mind. There's a lot of these other things that also play a role. And so these things are, of course, not captured. But we show you exactly what we capture and what is going to be the expected outcome of that. Similar to this, I want to touch upon, you know, we talk about accuracy, and this is really important in forecasting. So I also want to explain to you actually why we know performance and why we know that we can trust the performance. So this is, for example, where we worked with a producer of fabrics. And here you can see the history of the last 5 years. And all the green lines are where we correctly predicted a change. So you see this was very, very correct. We didn't capture all the changes. You see here is some changes in between. But when we indicated a change, we were very correct. So which is somewhere around 90% in this example. And so what you then get as an output is, of course, that we can tell you, okay, the fabric orders in the next 6 months are most likely going to be within or below the indicated corridor here. And that is already very useful because there's a benefit to this, of course. If we remember this example from the beginning, there's a real cost to getting it wrong, right? Which is somewhere minimum, for instance, we said 4% of revenue. And if we look at the customer themselves and the size they had, the problem was really that there was no good order forecast. The changes in the market make purchasing, production, planning, etc., a real challenge. And so what we saw that we could capture an accuracy of 80 to 90% in 6 months for orders. So it was all about orders and demand, which is an increase in accuracy by around 50 to 60%, which is similar to a loss avoided of around 2.5 million. So we're looking at a 100 million revenue company here. And these were, for reference, all the different things we did. So you see, we looked at garments, fabrics, different yarn types, and we had an average accuracy somewhere around 80-ish% for the next 6 months, 80 to 89%. And we did different types of forecasts, which we also show here on the right.
Hey, Bjol, I want to add something.
Yes.
Why we are so focused on a 6 to 12 months basis, on
That's a good point.
not just on 3 or 5 or 10 years, because as you all know, you are from the industry. If I know the tipping points 6 months ahead, I can maneuver. Even 4 months ahead, I can maneuver. I can really be more aggressive on pricing and sell off stocks, or less aggressive to really wait a little bit and see how the market develops. And this is such an important information to really change, let's say, the modus, I'd say, the modi in a company, how to act on the market, for instance. And this is 6 months, 4 months, 6 months, or 8 months is absolutely good in order to achieve good results in terms of performance.
Absolutely, and we do use the same logic, the same window also for general market data, because we know, you know, a lot of companies are exporting to certain markets, or price data, which we also say is general market data. So there you also, of course, are interested in the inflection points usually that are happening within the next 6 months or 6 to 12 months. And the forecast we produce is also always refreshed every month. So we can even refresh more frequently, but we know that a lot of customers prefer monthly refreshing of the forecasting. In total, actually, there's around 2 billion data sets that we can access and that we can also do forecasts on for whatever you're interested in. But of course, for practical reasons, I think it's usually maybe around 1,000 or 2,000 data sets that are really of interest to most users in the textile space. And we use the rest to forecast these key data sets that we have. Just so to summarize, I mean, we talked about it. But what we can really also focus is on your own data. So just to make it clear, and this is what we also do now in the yarn space and the garment space, also with cotton products and fibers. And there we look at the orders, the deliveries, the regional activity, the product categories, and also look into cost factors such as the purchase prices for particular synthetic materials and other raw materials such as cotton. That's what I showed you in the beginning. The process here, how we work, is simple. We meet you in a first meeting. We do a workshop with you so you understand what is the best forecasting setup. We do a testing where we say, okay, don't send us all your data, send us some of your data, and we simulate 2023 with you so you get a feeling as to how well the forecast performs. And all we need is an Excel file, so not a lot of implementation necessary here. And then we go into the real forecasting process with you where we work on those billions of data. We make them all accessible for you, and you can then use them with us, with our support, to forecast better and more accurately according to what happens in the world. We are not leaving you alone. We're always involved as well. We offer this via our AI platform and also together with WTN, of course. And if required, we can also go all the way to an implementation with your ERP systems. We already introduced ourselves. I simply want to lastly also introduce two others because we are, of course, a new technology company. And so it's always good to know who you're working with. On the tech side, we have with us Nuno, who is overseeing our engineering team, 12 years of experience, former Math Olympiad winner, nominated as Program of the Year. And we also have Jonas Wagner, who is a PhD in machine learning. He oversees our data team, who is somebody with more than 7 years of applied AI experience with a focus on the supply chain and logistics in particular. So Fritz, if there's something else, please mention it now, because I think we're going to wrap up.
Oh, I think it's basically all set.
Okay, all right. So to just sum it up, I mean, we see there's a lot of volatility in the space. I think everyone here knows that. And there's a real cost attached to it. We did also an estimate on the whole industry. Actually, if we look only at the forecasting alone, we know it's somewhere between 100 to 300 billion wasted each year in textiles, which is around 1% of the global greenhouse gas emissions as well. So that's why we know it has a real impact, a real cost, the issue of forecasting. Our team, of course, is ready for you. We bring you new technology to tackle this challenge. And all you need is an Excel. So get in touch, and we would be very happy, of course, to work with you and to explore what can really bring value to your organization and your products. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bjol, Fritz, thank you so much for something that is so complex, billions of data sets. You make it sound very clear and simple as to what this technology is able to achieve. And we've received a number of questions for you, which I'd like to throw at you now. The first one says that the supply chain is quite an unpredictable place. Yes, that's true. How can AI modeling stay ahead of volatile or tumultuous changes to the supply chain to ensure that it is always accurate? I think what we're referring to here is a kind of a black swan event, and how you can react to that and how quickly you can react to that, perhaps.
That's a very good point. And I might jump back into the presentation. We have an additional slide here. Of course, the user is the question is correct from the visitor of the webinar. We are not able to forecast black swan events because that is the definition of a black swan event, that is not forecastable. However, you can see even in things such as the large-scale invasion of Ukraine, that you can adapt much more quickly with this kind of forecasting logic than the customer's own sales budget. So what we see here in green is the sales budget. The actual demand is in blue. You see the forecast there we had at that point in time in red. And at the end, of course, if you look at the period around September 22, there's a significant gap between the sales budget and the actual demand, but this gap is much lower in our forecasting. And this is part of the value, of course, that if you have an adaptive forecast that's based on indicators that have influenced the demand and influenced the prices, then you can anticipate these changes better and you can adapt to them more quickly. And that is very, very important, of course, to save you money, etc.
I think there are always singular events. Yeah, if I remember back, Fukushima supply chain disruption, Suez Canal supply chain disruption. Never happened. That went on forever, so to say, unquote. So, and this is why the system is very adaptive and has historical data in hand and learns out of historical data and adapts much faster than the human being, so to say. And this is what the graph shows here. I mean, we were pretty much on the line there with the Ukrainian war, whereas human beings with the sales budget still didn't really know what to do at the end, if you see that green line.
Got some more questions coming in here for you. Next question, what AI techniques are most effective in forecasting demand and managing price volatility in the industry? Don't know how much you want to reveal about your techniques.
That's a very good question. I mean, we can, of course, touch upon what is the difference between what we are doing and, for example, ChatGPT is doing. Our approach is as different from ChatGPT as a chainsaw from a Swiss Army knife. So if you want to go into the forest and fell a tree, you need a chainsaw and not a Swiss Army knife. And price demand forecasting is the chainsaw approach. So you need a very specialized tool. And ChatGPT uses a more all-rounder approach, right? So where you can do a bit of everything and your focus is very different and your data gets mixed with the data of other people. And so you lose a lot of the control. And we use an approach that trains models that are specific to the problem with data that is specifically selected for the problem so that the model is really like a specialist and solves what it should solve instead of fantasizing or coming up with things that do not make a lot of sense.
There's a follow-up question from the same delegate. How do you validate the accuracy and reliability of your AI forecasting models?
Yeah, I would maybe again refer then to the initial presentation. As we, sorry, I'll just go back to this one slide.
Sure.
The verification is, of course, a more complex process than I share now, but in large terms, in general terms, it is as it's shown here. So what the machine learning does is it predicts throughout time, throughout the last 10 years, as if it doesn't know that it is in the past. So the model actually doesn't know it, of course. We know that it's in the past. And then it compares with what has actually happened, whether its own predictions were correct. And this is how you fine-tune the model. And this is also what this graph shows. So the thick green lines here show when we were correct, and also the sort of dashed green lines. The thick green lines show when the models said there would be a positive development in trend, and the dashed lines when there was a prediction that there would be a negative development in trend. And so you see that the one time it was wrong, somewhere around COVID, was that it did not expect the trend to reverse immediately. But then it was correct when it predicted the continuation of the trend in 21, 22, and so on. And it accurately then again captured negative trend somewhere around 22 to 23.
Thank you, Bjol. Question here for Fritz, with your textile industry experience. We'd love to know how do you foresee AI forecasting changing the textile industry? That's quite a big question, but I'm sure there are some themes that you can share with us.
I mean, I see AI and machine learning very much as a support, for the forecasting. So far, we just rely on let's say on the sentiments of the customers, of the customers, etc. And so we put in our forecasting a lot of, I'd say, a lot of gut feeling, right? So I did it quite often during my times as a CEO, and this is now giving me another opinion where I can really be more, let's say, challenged in a way. And so I say really very often, because I'm in a supervisory board of some companies, and so yeah, we have to improve the S&OP process. But the S&OP process will not get better if you don't get better forecasting. And I think this is an additional support of AI and machine learning, that the forecast going into the system will be more accurate. And this is what we aim to. Of course, the optimum would be that everybody in the supply chain will participate, and then it's better for everyone, that's for sure, because we have more stabilizing stock levels during this in the whole supply chain, which is not the case right now. It's quite a disaster, I must say, and you know it also, Mark, from your interviews and your guys, you know, in the textile industry. It's not efficient. It's very long and very fragmented, small and medium-sized companies, and that's the issue. I see a lot of support, by AI and structured approach.
Thank you, Fritz. And on that positive note, we do have to draw this session to a close. Can I thank you both for your time this afternoon? As always, most stimulating and interesting what you're doing. And I've no doubt that some of our delegates today will be reaching out to find out more about the service. For you in the audience, please join us again shortly. We'll be back at 1 p.m. UTC for our next session, which is a presentation by Raj Bhakta, who is founder and CEO of Chem AI. He will be exploring how AI is changing the chemical industry and the discovery of chemicals. We'll see you back in 20 minutes or so.